once again, scan this QR code to get to the questions that we have for tonight. Go in there and upvote the ones that you'd like the panelists to cover. And I'll first bring up the panelists and our moderator, Stella.
Thank you, Michael. So I'm Stella. Some of you also know me by the name Suqin. So I'm from Singapore.SG, and together with me are our 3 fellow engineering managers, Rahul, Harish, and Sravya. Yeah. So in the session later, we will share a bit more. I think we can take a seat first.
Would you like to self-intro? Introduce yourselves.
Yeah. Maybe.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sravya. I have been in software engineering for over a decade. Last 4 years, I've been in leadership. And the majority of my career, I've been in various fintech firms in India and logistics domains as well. That has given me a wide range of opportunities. And as part of today, want to talk about the transition from an IC to an EM. And that opportunity came quite early in my career, which was also a boon and a bane. For me, I'll share more. But when I did get that opportunity, I was in PayPal as a lead software engineer, and I was lucky to have been part of a team that was just getting started. My director of engineering was just setting up the team from scratch, and I had the opportunity to join it early on. And that gave me a platform to basically pick up so many opportunities, so many things to do, and actually build a body of work for myself. I grew the web team from 5 engineers to 17, and also deployed multiple projects from PayPal, for PayPal, business loan, especially in multiple countries. So throughout that journey, I learned a lot. And because I was one of the starting engineers within the team, I got to build from ground up, including hiring, including setting up the project structures, including the execution and architecture to complete deployment and documentation. So, and my director also supported me a lot throughout the journey. And after a point, he asked me if I wanted to be an engineering manager. I honestly did not know at that point in time. I knew eventually I want to be a manager, but I didn't think of it at that point in time. It was a little earlier in my career. And I told him, I don't know, yes, but I don't know how to go about it. And I was terrified. Because, well, so much responsibility, didn't know anything about it. And he told me one thing is, I'll give you an opportunity. I'll give you an unofficial opportunity for a few months. Try it out. If you don't like it, you can continue being an IC. He created that safe space and safety net for me to experiment. I did. He gave me a team of 5 engineers and an entire vertical as well. Led it, had a lot of fun, made some mistakes, was super hectic. But since then, I have not looked back. So have been enjoying my journey as an EM so far. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Harish. This is sort of my 7th, 8th year into software engineering. I started off at Visa as a full stack engineer, then moved on to Grab, and finally now I'm at OGP. I've been at OGP for about 2.5 years right now. I would call myself sort of an accidental manager. I never really intended or wasn't planning to become a manager yet. But then one fine day, my then manager decided to go on a long leave, right? So, and guess what? Our performance reviews or teams were in a month. So I was then the tech lead of the team, and I thought, okay, maybe if I shouldn't see this as a sort of obstacle, but maybe this is an opportunity for me to try something new. And that's how I tried management for the first time. And since then, have just stuck on to that. I think it's been pretty fulfilling as a manager, but it's a very different ballgame from individual contributor route. So happy to share more experiences later. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, everyone. I'm Rahul. I've been in engineering for about 8+ years now. And almost the last 5+ years, I've been in the fintech domain in my current company. And much like Sravya, I was also quite fortunate to get the opportunity to build a team from scratch. So initially, when I joined the company, I was part of the platform team, which is core IC and engineering work. Before I got some hands-on working on an internal team, which is like a lending team, where I was working as a tech lead role. And the last 3+ years have been like the opportunity that I talked about. From my heads, got this opportunity to start working on a new stack for transaction where we integrate with a lot of different B2B partners, as well as use the same stack to expand into international regions for B2C. And through this, like last 3 years, I can't even imagine how these few years have passed by. Initially starting as more on the tech leadership side, more focus on delivery and design and architecture, while slowly transitioning to how to enable the other engineers on my team to be able to groom them, make them more independent engineers, and try and focus on their growth. So it's been quite exciting to go about these things. Lots of learning, lots of unlearning about myself as well. And today, I got promoted earlier this year, so now focusing more and more on managerial side. Would love to share more later on through the questions. Thank you.
Thank you all, our fellow engineering managers, for the introduction. And just a little bit of background why we are having this topic today. I think since we set up the group, especially in the Telegram group chat, on and off, we do see this topic coming up. And this topic is also very close to my heart. 3 years ago, before I took over this role, I thought I would be an IC for my entire life. So then some things happened, like some of our fellow panelists have shared, right? Things happen and then we take over even though we don't feel very prepared. So one of my ex-managers shared with me, if you feel you are fully prepared for a role, you actually has already outgrown that role. So, be bold, be brave. So let's go into the topics. So that's how this topic came around when I bring up for my fellow organizing committee to say, why not we have a session on this, right? So we have a live panelist question. So usually we'll prep the panelists with the questions, right? But today we are going to use the pigeonhole. So they may or may not have seen the questions. Let's do it on the fly, right? So I will just go top down based on the highest vote. So the first question, what's one mistake you see new managers make when they are trying to build trust with their teams? How do you balance being empathetic with also holding people accountable? So who would like to go first?
So new managers, as in, if I'm interpreting it correctly, people who have just become a manager. Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah. So there are two answers I think I can think of right now, which is, one is become a new manager, but for the same team that you've been working with as a peer, and become a new manager for a completely different team. And both have, in my experience and the people I have worked with and I've seen, one common thing that both categories meet is just going or rushing into proving themselves as a manager. Being a good manager goes out the window, but being a manager becomes a priority. So they rush into establishing themselves as a manager, establishing their authority or whatever the authority they think they are supposed to have. And in that journey, they may make mistakes in terms of breaking the trust of the peers that they worked with, or even failing to establish the trust with the new team members. And it just backfires. So in that case, the advice that I try to give to whoever I'm coaching for IC2EM is just not to rush into being a manager. Just continue, and it's a very long process and a slow process, but don't rush into establishing yourself as the title of a manager. So that is one thing, one mistake. I think there was a part 2 of that, which is empathy. But in that, in my opinion, empathetic is not being nice, it's being kind. So when you want to hold somebody accountable, be kind and do right by them. Be very transparent as you can be. But it doesn't mean, don't mistake that for being nice. Don't mistake that for having to give them a fake or incorrect feedback or anything. Just do right by them, do right by you, because at the end of the day, if not now, it's inevitable that it's going to come back to you. So you'll have to manage it either now or later. So instead of being nice, just be kind.
I think this is a mistake I did personally as a new manager, is that I felt quite overwhelmed and I felt the need to be liked by my teammates or build trust through being likable, right? That's when it goes into a rabbit hole of you not being able to give direct or clear feedback. I think it's a bit related to what Sravya also mentioned, but there's a useful framework that my then manager, I think Kiwi, taught me. It's called radical candor, where you actually should care deeply, personally, but you should also challenge directly. And I felt that was a very effective way for me to actually build the trust. When you care deeply, but you don't challenge, then it's called ruinous empathy. That means you don't give enough growth for the person. But if you flip it the other way around, you truly understand and genuinely care about them as a person. You understand fundamentally who they are as a person. Like, I shouldn't just see my engineers as engineers, but who are they as humans? Like, what do they actually do outside work? Do they like to play floorball? Do they like to go skiing? Who are they actually as a person? What do they really like? And then understand as a person and then give them the feedback that they require. I think that actually works a lot in terms of establishing empathy, but at the same time, you get to build your trust. Yeah.
So, Rahul?
Yeah. From my own experience as well, what I realized was initially moving from a pure IC or tech role to a managerial role, I had the strong tendency to move towards solutions or even jump to solutions myself. While one of the primary responsibilities for me as a manager, which I think is a coaching role, is to enable open discussions and facilitate other people to come to solutions themselves, rather than me giving out solutions. And many a times that may also involve they will do things a certain different way, which personally I wouldn't prefer. And at the same time, it's also okay to allow that to happen, because that's the best way to learn for anyone is by making certain mistakes, like small mistakes.
So what would you do when they have a different approach from you, in doing the certain things?
I would ask more questions, figure out why or in what is causing them to come to that certain conclusion or such solutions. And in my own mind as well, I would think about what is the worst case that can happen for a certain solution that has been chosen. If the worst case is, it's not disastrous and, it can actually be used as a stepping stone or learning curve by making certain mistakes, I think I'm pretty open to just letting them try. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, any questions before we move to the next question on the list? Okay. Well, I think it just jumped. Okay. For someone who loves technical problem solving, how do you decide between pursuing a principal or staff engineer path versus a management path? Wow, this question is super close to the heart.
Maybe I can start first.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, so I can totally relate with this. I'm sure a lot of us here really like technical problem solving. Personally, I also felt that I really like engaging with people, and I really like listening to people, and I care deeply trying to work on people's growth and helping them grow and be better. Like, even to this day, I feel like at a certain point in time in my own career, I reached a stage where, technical stuff, it was exciting, it was nice, but for me, it felt like seeing and enabling other people to grow was more fulfilling for me. So that's where I started realizing that I have certain direction from my own natural tendencies, as well as wanting to just help people.
Is that realization after you took on the role, or is something that you realize you can do that, so you want to take the role? Which comes first?
Very interesting. So in this, actually, the role did not come first. I was a tech lead, and in my company, at least, the tech lead role was more focused towards technical side. We had an engineering manager at the time, who's now the head of engineering. So he suggested to me to try out doing one-on-one sessions with the team, even when I was a tech lead. And initially, I started off doing one-on-one sessions just to see what it's like. And slowly, it was quite outside my comfort zone as well, to try and engage with people and being quite disciplined about spending, let's say, 15 minutes or half an hour just to chat with people, being able to really fill in the entire half an hour. Sometimes you don't have enough to talk about. There's also a slight awkwardness. But through all of that, I realized that, slowly with legitimate efforts, I can see people start opening up, and I can actually be someone who can pick certain things off from what might be happening in the overall team and be able to solve certain issues from the background and help the team to be better.
Awesome. Okay, I realize we have 27 questions. We may not be able to run through all. So instead of having everyone to answer all questions, maybe we'll jump around, right? Okay. So the next question will be, what was the single hardest habit or mindset you had to unlearn when moving from an IC role to a managerial role? Yep. Sravya or Harish, you want to go first?
Can give it a shot. Think when you naturally are put into a new position or new manager, I think it's going to be a very uncomfortable, awkward space for everyone. And my tendency, or probably the common tendency, is for you to jump back into what you feel competent in, because you are in awkward space. You want to establish trust, but at the same time, the only levers you can fall back to is your own skills. So a lot of new managers would tend to jump back into writing code reviews, RFC sessions, and so on. But actually, when you become a new manager, the highest sort of leverage thing you could do is to think and see what are the systems you need to optimize, what are the new relationships you need to create as a new manager for the team to succeed. And I think that's one habit I had to consciously unlearn, because I was falling into the trap of, hey, I'm a bit uncomfortable, so actually let me just go do my favorite code review, let me go talk to my engineers, let me go and grab them for an RFC session. And you get into that rabbit hole, and that stops you from growing as a manager. Yeah.
Okay. How about Sravya? I think just now you wanted to share something as well.
Yeah, so just adding on to what Harish already mentioned, right? Like one thing that I would summarize it as is learn to relinquish control, because as an IC, we have so much control over our tasks, our day, the project, the decisions that we make. But as an EM, it's a completely different ballgame. You have way less control, but you're also accountable for a lot more. So just unlearning that the control you have is not the same anymore, but you're also responsible for a lot more. That's the biggest thing that changes once you get to an EM stage.
How would you decide what are the things that you will not go into, and then what are the things that you will actually go into as an EM?
It's a difficult journey. It's not going to come on day one, honestly. It's just learning from other people. In my case, I just kept observing what my manager was doing, what my peer manager was doing, and trying to understand from my own experience what I liked when I was an IC or what I did not enjoy when I was an IC. I really hated it when my manager was trying to micromanage just because they wanted to know everything. But that's also on a reflection of me where I was not informing much. And so learning from my own experiences, once I became a manager, I had to consciously restrain myself, to put it correctly, to restrain myself from just doing whatever I wanted.
Okay. Yep. So moving on to next question. Wow, this is an interesting one. Is politics necessary when you move into management? Right. So, if yes, how do you survive or thrive in the house of cards, right? Because a lot of us, we're probably more used to facing the computer, looking at lines of code, troubleshooting the bugs, than facing human bugs. Right. Okay. Who wants to go with first for this?
I'll add my 2 cents. Well, politics. I think when you frame it as politics, it feels like a sort of a zero-sum game where you need to scheme or strategize or win over someone to get something achieved. But I think if you reframe your thinking as like, hey, this is going to be a positive sum game where you are actually in a position to create value, create more value, I think that is a mindset shift that will help. Specifically, when I jumped in management, I didn't see myself as like, hey, no, I need to now strategize or come up with schemes to win at this new game. Firstly, we should unlearn that it's not a game. It's not something, it's not a gamified thing that you are in, but rather you are there to achieve a specific mission and see how you can co-create new value with the sort of new levers that you're given as a manager. Yeah.
On this? Actually, on this, I remember a famous quote. Is that when there are two people, there is politics. I think that's quite humanly true. Where there's a group involved, there will be certain things which are going on in the background, or which can be quite draining as well. I personally try to be away from politics as much as possible, like not trying to play games like Harish mentioned, and I just try to deliver on my own performance, like just try to keep up. Yeah, I think if you try to engage too much into these things, you kind of get dragged down, and the important work loses the main focus. Yeah.
There's also the quote where there's too many cook will spoil the broth, right? Yeah. So, but adding on to that, I think there's also one thing when we look at politics, is I always share with my team, we don't have to be every day thinking about politics, but we need to know it enough and manage it enough such that it doesn't bring problems to the team. I think that's something that in general we need to think about. Yeah. And okay, before I ask the next question, maybe we can ask our panelists, which of you are introvert and which of you are extrovert, so they will get the different parties to answer the questions as well.
I think I'm an ambivert. Yeah.
Okay, I can answer both perspectives.
I think I fall more into the introvert. Yeah.
Introvert.
It might not look like it, but I am an extreme introvert. As
Okay.
introvert as they come. I don't want to speak.
I know. Wow, you carry off very well, not very obvious. But okay, we will have Rahul to represent the extrovert, and then we will have Harish and Sravya to represent the introverted tech leader. So the question is, what are the pros and cons of introverted versus extroverted tech leaders, and how does each adapt their leadership style to guide and work effectively with their teams? Can we let the ambivert fast go first?
Okay, I'm gonna try. How does each adapt? I think I'm naturally curious about meeting more people and trying out different things, even putting myself in certain uncomfortable situations. I don't know, I've done this not just at work, but even personal life over the last few years, which is why I like this opportunity as well. I signed up to speak, even though I'm kind of nervous talking. I think just that openness to engage with others, trying to build relationships and being friendly. I think that's something as a leadership style, it is quite essential to help your team as well, like, to remove any kinds of blockers in the future. Does that answer the question entirely? Like yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay. So, but do you find like, because of for now, I will just take you as an introvert, right?
Okay.
Extrovert, right? So do you find any of that helps you in your leadership style? Like, maybe certain things you might find that you will do it differently because of that.
I think so, yes. So for example, I'm quite open to, even though my entire team is remote, my whole team is based in Jakarta, and I don't actually need to work from the office, so I don't need to really turn on my camera, but I just try to show my face. And that's also, I think I'm comfortable doing it, which a lot of introverts might not be. So
Yes.
that's something, also I try to encourage my team to do it. Over the last few months, for example, I've encouraged my team to do it more and more often, and I try to explain the why behind it. It helps, especially when we have product managers who are based in Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines. I'm based in Singapore, my team is in Jakarta. So with a more international crowd, it's all the more necessary to relate as people. And fortunately, my team also started to understand and adapting some of those things, which overall helps the relationship building with the other teams. Yeah.
Okay. How about Harish?
I think for me, I think my mindset is to play to my strengths. I think my strengths is more of organizing or using the resources or the people on my team to the best. So for example, if there are things which I think needs more vocal, people to be more vocal, for example, running a Fig Jam session or yearly retro, for example, I'll get sort of the extroverts on the team or more vocal people to run the show to get the energy up. But at the same time, like for example, my strengths would be more of like strategizing, optimizing for the processes and systems. So generally, the philosophy I have is like I play to my strengths and I help other people's strengths to come out as well. Yeah.
So in your hiring process, would you purposefully hire some extroverts to balance up the introvertness in yourself?
I wouldn't say I look for extroverts, but I think one of the key criteria is like communication. I think that is something, whether you're intro or extrovert, it's a basic requirement I would look out for. Yeah.
How about Sravya?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I am an introvert, but when it comes to work, or even outside of work, I'm a very curious person, as Rahul mentioned, right? Like he is. So I want to listen more, and I'm extremely anxious if I have to speak. But when I have to, especially as part of my job and work as a manager, I make sure to listen more. That has helped me understand people a lot more, be more empathetic, understand other people's point of views, understand the things that people don't necessarily say out loud. And it has become easier for me to understand and notice things which are unsaid or unheard, and gives me more information to decide or play to it and then like go forward from there. When it comes to having a team or leading it, listening more has helped me a lot, and I continue to do that. And with respect to also as a manager, you need to speak, you need to communicate. And as Harish said, communication is the number one key skill, irrespective of what role or what domain you are in. So that is something I look at. Hiring, one thing that you interestingly asked is, do you hire extroverts? I do look for a balance in the team, because if everybody in the team is quiet and everybody has anxiety, then like things won't get done. Somebody has to instigate.
I see. But it's quite hard, right? I tend to notice, I think a lot of the engineers, I think you have a higher ratio of introverts versus extroverts.
It's easier to just talk to machines.
I totally agree. Oh yeah, I think there's a question in the back. Yes. So, I assume you're asking how do we balance the team, especially if the team has a lot more introvert or one side versus the others, right? Okay. So how do we maintain the balance? Be it when we have more of one side in the team, or maybe we have a balance in the team, but how do we manage the situations, right? So anyone?
In my case, over the years, I've pushed myself to be there, because irrespective of how uncomfortable I am in a group, I still want to do my job. I still want to do what's right by me and what I'm supposed to do and the other person, because that's the role, that's the responsibility. I want to make sure that if I'm in a conversation, the other person walks away feeling that they are satisfied with that. So irrespective of how I'm feeling, I push myself, and that's the way I deal with it.
So maybe I can add on to it also. Just to share, I think introvert doesn't mean that they don't voice out or they don't communicate well. So I run a team where I think I only have 1 to 2 extroverts. They are largely introverts. And actually they do speak up. So it's a spectrum, right? Different people have different spectrum. And a lot of them, when it comes to their own subject matter expert area, regardless how introverted they are, they actually speaks up. Yeah. Where they may be a bit or more awkward is like, for example, when I introduce the new boss, everybody is like super quiet. So I need to bridge the team, even though I'm also introvert. Yeah. So don't get the misinterpretation that having an introvert in the team doesn't mean they don't speak up. Actually, they do. Yeah. Okay. Next question. Oh, by the way, did that answer your questions? Okay, great. All right. So next question. What specific routine or practices helps you become a better manager in your first 6 to 12 months? Maybe some of us need to recollect a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. So if you could give your first time manager self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, I think this should be pretty fresh for me because I only transitioned in the last 1 year. So a few things which I would tell myself if I could go back in time, like let's say a year ago, I would say that, it might be slightly awkward to try and engage with everyone and listen to people. But I can assure you that through this phase you can actually learn to build relationships. Like start trying to listen more rather than speak. And in terms of solutions, don't try to give solutions, like treat them. These days there's a lot of people talking about education systems as well, right? We don't want, let's say if we had kids in school, we don't want the teacher to give them solutions directly. Like you'll see kids playing around with building blocks, with Lego blocks, and they build something, they break things down, and then they try again. So that's quite essential. For me, I would say that, focus on that more, and it's okay if things are not perfect. Everything takes time. Give the grace to everyone that you would want to be given to you as well.
I think this quite important, a piece of advice. So we'll let all the panelists to give a piece of advice to everyone. Yeah.
I didn't really have a plan stepping into management. Like I said, like my then manager left. It was sort of a hurried transition into management. But one thing that I consciously did in the 6 months, I would say, was to actually work on myself more than anything. Actually, more than like working on the team, optimizing anything, jumping to become a manager, I just took some conscious effort into learning what a manager does and working on myself. And this included everything from copying what my manager does, replicating the small things that I thought was good from him. For example, giving direct feedback, setting up one-on-ones, how to establish better relationships. And I think this conscious work on myself paid off a lot of dividends in the long run, because it kind of cascades down. As you get these skills, I think you get to run your team more efficiently over time. So I think the one piece of advice is that don't rush to be a manager. Like, it's fine because you are a new manager. You can't be 100% and be okay with not being 100%. Use that acknowledgement to work on yourself so that you can reach, you will never reach 100%, but you can reach 95% maybe in the next 6 months and so on.
In my case, for a long time, actually a full maybe more than 12 months of period of time, one mistake that I made, and I wish I could tell my younger self that, is ask for help. When I became a new manager, I thought I had to figure everything out myself. When I say that, like, if there is a issue with somebody in my team, or they're not performing, or they're looking out, or I know that they're going to switch, or they're just unhappy, for any problem, I just felt this pressure that I am the manager, so I have to figure this out myself. And I refused to ask for help. And every single time I met with my manager, he gave me the same feedback: ask for help. Why are you taking everything on yourself? But I never listened to him. But that is what I actually realized after spending over a year and a half, that, yeah, I should have asked for help and shouldn't have taken it all on myself, because I'm just learning, right? Like, as you said, it's okay to make mistakes. You're learning, and just you have to accept the fact that you're not going to be 100% and just ask for help.
Yeah. Actually, when you transit to engineering manager, it doesn't mean that you suddenly become Superman or Superwoman. So it's okay to ask for help. Yeah. So, yeah, at this point, yeah, I also want to open to the floor. Yes.
The answer by plus. I think a lot of questions also well. Managing a team. As a new manager, how about managing upwards?
Okay, so the question is, because we've been sharing about how do we manage the team, right? So how do we manage upwards? What would be the piece of advice for the group here in terms of managing upwards? I think now we can go.
In my case, nothing changed in terms of managing up. Like, I have always just as a habit documented everything. I am not great at advocating for myself. So documents were just a lot easier for me to just send it to my manager and say, hey, this is everything I've done. I kept doing that. So managing up, I don't think I have a lot more advice, but Harish and Rahul.
I think for me, it was quite nothing much to manage upwards because my manager put me as a manager. So that's the only person I'm managing. But I think I was just transparent with him that, hey, this is something new and I am not very comfortable yet doing things. And I think there's just being transparent that, hey, be open to my mistakes, created a good safe space for both of us to acknowledge, like, hey, this is still like adjustment period that's going on. And I think initially what I did was also have more frequent one-on-ones, more visibility in what I was doing, so that we can do course correction earlier than later. So if I was doing something wrong or something that could have been done better, I get better feedback. I also included my manager in like our team meetings so that he has more visibility into how I communicate with the team, because that was one area I actually consciously wanted to improve on. So seeing a manager or looking at sort of the upwards more as a sort of collaborative opportunity rather than you are reporting to them actually makes a lot of difference.
Rahul?
Similar to Harish, actually, I tried to get more feedback from my manager. That's how I tried to manage upwards. Like, am I meeting his expectations or not? I also got more feedback from my skip manager, just trying to see where are the gaps in terms of expectation expectations, the things I can improve. I think that's the piece where, asking for help, at least for me, applied a lot more. I think just that being vulnerable there, opening up to my manager as well, like, asking, how did I do in this session? Do you think there's something I could have changed? Or what do you think I can improve here? What can I do better? Just being open to that helped a lot.
So tapping on to that, so a lot of the sharing here, you will see that tap on to your managers or even managers, to work with them on this journey. They are there to help us succeed. So that's one way, right? Before I continue the questions on pigeonholes, any questions on the floor that you all want to raise? No.
I'm quite curious about your perspective on how can we scale leadership in flat and multidisciplinary teams, right? So when dealing with new technologies, oftentimes the product managers or maybe even some creative people that we're working with, in the context of, say, using AI to automate videos. I mean, everyone's trying to figure something out, and it's kind of like a flat thing. So yeah, I guess I'm just curious, how would you manage that relationship to bring out the best in all your teammates?
Especially when managing multidisciplinary team.
So one rule of thumb that I usually follow as a blanket unless something changes is trust but verify. And everybody you're working with brings something to the table, is skilled at what they're doing. You might not be, and that's okay, because that's a collaborative environment. Lean on them a lot and learn from them. And why I say trust but verify is because you can lean and still keep learning, challenge them, question them, instead of just taking everything at face value. So that is what I would suggest.
Okay. Yeah, I hope that answers the questions. Okay. Any other question from the floor? Okay. Oh, there's one at the back. Yes.
Okay, the question I have is that, because there is the individual contributor track and there's the people management track, and both people manager as well as the people, both engineering managers in people management and lead individual contributors need to work across functions. So I would like to understand how's your relationship with, the lead individual contributors?
Anyone want to give it a shot? Basically, your question is how do we manage the lead individual contributors?
I can attempt. I think it's similar to one point that we talked about a bit earlier. It's about, giving away with certain responsibilities, like, for example, architectural decisions, or more like even sprint planning decisions. Those can be given more to the tech lead, for example. Like, that's currently what I'm following. And from my side, I always try to look at myself as more of a facilitator. I'm still involved in pretty much all the technical discussions. I quite enjoy them. And at the same time, I just try to get more people to share. Sometimes I would share my thoughts as well. And yeah, that's kind of how I try to split our responsibilities. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, try and get a start at it. So you have to make the differentiation between accountability and responsibility. So the person the work is done by the individual contributor. He's the person responsible for the output. So you make sure you manage the person that has output. But at the end of the day, the whole project, the deliverables, the person accountable for the outcome is the manager himself, the tech lead, right? So he is accountable to the stakeholders, to the positive outcome that you want to get, right? But the manager himself is not responsible for delivering that line of code, right? So what, as an EM, we're accountable for the outcome, right? So essentially, we want to make sure that you have the output. Let's make sure that output that the individual contributor comes up with is the best solution that gives us the best outcome, right? I think does it make sense to you? Matrix. Accountability versus responsibility. I assign an issue to you. You are responsible for delivering that issue, right? So essentially, I assign the task to you, or you pick up the task, and you say, I want to deliver this piece of this Jira card, the user story. That's your responsibility. Get it done, right? So, but at the end of the day, I want to make sure, as an EM, I also want to make sure that what you deliver also contributes to the eventual outcome you want to get, right? Essentially, you want to make sure the feature is done, yes, works, but does it actually do the work that it needs to do? Is there any bugs with that feature they just delivered, right? So, yeah, does it make sense?
Yeah.
Actually, there's some difference. So, as an engineering manager, right, you could have lead roles in a team also. So you are managing IC. You are also managing engineering lead.
All right.
So there is a bit of difference, and the way we manage them have some difference as well. Like how we handle IC and how we handle engineering, and the expectation is different as well.
Yeah. Then the focus is more on the engineering lead.
Okay. How do we manage engineering lead?
And how do you balance the responsibilities between the engineering lead as well as yourself, so that there's no a huge overlap?
So actually, you probably go down the path of how will you manage a team differently, right? Versus when you are managing leads. So teams of teams effectively to a certain extent. Anybody wants to give this a shot? Yes. Anybody managing a team of teams? Okay, maybe I can share. So my team is expanding, so I'm having a few more leads now, right? So it's very different. So actually, it's not just about IC and leads different. It's also about their experience. So when you handle a junior engineer and a senior engineer, you will handle them differently. When you handle a lead, you need to empower them a bit more as well. And it's very important for us, right, to know. So in this journey, you will go through a few things. When you first take over, you will find the accountability part a bit strange, because you suddenly are accountable for things that other people do. They do it well, we put them up. They did it wrongly, there's some mistake, you have to own it. And sometimes some of us might get not used to it, but you will slowly get to see why we own it, even though it's the team who makes the mistake, because we didn't manage to help them prevent it. Yeah, we didn't manage to help them catch it before it happens, right? So that's one thing. Then the other thing is, when you have leads to the team, you need to know when you let go certain things. If you are too preoccupied with certain things, you lost track of what you need to do. So one yardstick is, what is the thing? So my own yardstick, open for the floor for sharing, right? My own yardstick is, I will ask myself if this is something that the lead can do. Because my biggest value to the team is to do what the team cannot do, what the team lead cannot do for his or her team. So if this is something that they can do, I will let them do it. But I will let them know that, if they encounter challenges, I'm here with you, behind you, and with you in this journey. So when you're handling the leads, you also have different level of leads. You have leads who are more experienced. You have leads who have just come into the lead role, will need a little bit more guidance in this journey. So that you will also differentiate it. Yeah. But so far, generally, my yardstick is I will ask myself, is this something that they can do? Yeah. So, and are they doing it for the first time also?
I work with multiple leads at this point. So my suggestion is talk to your senior management. Very importantly, what the hell do they want? So if you're working in a commercial entity, how do you drive money, the revenue? If you're working for government sector, sorry, don't know. But you still need to talk to your senior management. What exactly do they need? How do you assign that responsibility to your leads? How do you hold them accountable for delivery within, say, 3, 6, 9 months? Right? I think that will be key. And between everybody who's fighting for like the best projects for promotion, you also need to figure out with HR. So this is the multidisciplinary problem, right? So the managing up the multidisciplinary side, you need to figure out the commercials, the strategy, what's going on. How do you assign out the task?
As an engineering manager, just simplistically, you have one tech lead and you have a bunch of engineers, right? So your tech lead could, eventually become an architect or may take up an engineering role. So the first thing an engineering manager have to do is to plan for succession, right? So the tech lead naturally become one of the mentees, potential mentees, just one. The second thing is that the manager's role is also about empowering the entire team, right? So what do you have to do outside the team to get resources, time from the boss, right? To make the team look good, to make the team successful. What the team needs, do they need tools, do they need access, do they need training, whatever it is, right? So beyond the standard engineering stuff, right? So of course, then if your tech lead needs mentorship, technical, yes, you're always there. But if your tech lead is pretty good, then you should be focused on the other areas, right? So that the accountability kind of syncs up because you get the resources and the attention from the. Now, you don't want also to get all the resources in, you do the job, actually no one sees the output, also pretty bad. So you also need to find the stage and limelight for your team to look really good. So it's actually part of the manager's job, yeah. Right.
Okay. We are good with that questions before we move on to the next one. Okay. So I have 2 questions here, but before I go to the framework, I think we can go through the other questions so that we can lead on to that framework. So how do you know when is the right time to move away from being an individual contributor to a leadership role? Yeah.
I think the right time would be, there's no specific right time. It really depends on circumstances. Maybe there's an opportunity in your organization. If you're really looking to be entirely ready for an opportunity, so like Sravya mentioned earlier, it's probably that you have, actually Stella mentioned, you've probably already outgrown that role. So look forward to any opportunities. Try and have good relationships with the entire org. Be someone who's trustworthy and who's willing to take up new things. I think that's how you can also find new opportunities. Yeah. That's what I would say.
I guess this also leads to the question that some of you might have in mind, right? One thing is about being ready. The other thing is, how do you know you want to be a lead or engineering manager instead of an IC?
Dabble on to all kinds of responsibilities. Like for me, it did start with doing one-on-ones with my team. And even since last year, I started connecting even more with the team, trying to bring them out for dinner, relationship building, not just focusing on the Jira tickets and, tracking the status of those tickets, but getting to know them as people, as humans. That helped me realize that I do enjoy doing it. For a lot of people, they might figure out that they don't, and it's completely okay. Without really trying it, I think it's kind of a long shot to know whether or not you would you prefer one over the other.
How about Sravya? Because you mentioned you're extreme introverted, right? And then you also mentioned you didn't quite expect this, but they have this role for you and ask you to try.
So my story actually, when I was in Goldman Sachs, which was the first company I was working for, second year into my career, there's a program in Goldman Sachs which is called Grey Wolf, which brings 8 interns together as part of one group, and I was the buddy for them. I was responsible for building 3 smaller internal applications. with the 8 interns. And I just enjoyed being a buddy. I also enjoyed teaching at that time. So I naturally built relationship, was teaching them Java, JavaScript, Angular, everything, and was building with them and leading that discussion. That's when I started to realize there's a lot more to just being in front of a laptop and just coding, because was put into situations like talking to the users, understanding what my manager wants, understanding how to translate those requirements to interns who are freshly into this path. And it was a lot of learning. But after the end of like that 8-week journey, when we had to do the fair on display, whatever we worked, that was great. It was so fulfilling. And I was like, oh, this is actually not bad. Like I could maybe take this up again. Cut to the next company that I was working for. There, the circumstances just happened. I was the senior most in the team, and for a long period of time, I was the only web engineer in the team, because of which I played all the roles. And that naturally put me into situations to understand dealing with people, dealing with different kinds of stakeholders. Me being a junior engineer, also being looked down on, thinking, oh, she doesn't know much, she's just new to this particular product. But having to fight those battles, it was a lot fulfilling when things translated well, and slowly started picking up a lot more people related tasks, like maybe contributing to hiring, being a mentor to a lot of junior engineers. That was the most fulfilling one, to be honest. Like Rahul said, mentorship, quite satisfying, gives you that sense of purpose in a day-to-day basis. And I continued that again as part of, as I mentioned in my introduction, when I joined PayPal, it came naturally to pick up more tasks along the way. And yeah, my manager recognized that maybe I'm suited for this role, gave me the opportunity, gave me a safe space to play the role unofficially. And yeah, it continued from there.
Okay. Yep. So I will come back to the question with 4 vote, but I find one related one, so I'll just continue on this, right? Because there's one very similar question is, do you want to be a manager, and how do you know, and was it an eventual career path? I think that's quite similar to just now the question, so maybe we can get Harish to share a little bit about this.
Yeah, so for me, at that point of time, I didn't want to be a manager. My manager left, so there was a clear need for the team for a manager. And again, like the team was in a flux, and it really required some kind of leadership and direction on the team. And if it wasn't for me, then someone totally new is going to come into the team, which is going to cause more flux and more confusion on the team, because of the whole onboarding and everything. So yeah, so I did not want to be manager at that time. How did I know? Because I think my career path or my plans were to naturally go into the lead IC route, at least initially, before I gave it a try. But I think there was some signals, like I think what Sravya also mentioned. I used to be quite heavily participating in hackathons, and in one particular hackathon, it's called Build for Good. I think you guys might have heard from OGP, where I did have a opportunity to be a mentor for a team. And I really loved that experience. It was that whole 1 month, it requires a lot of effort to be on weekends, and you work on like a very concrete problem. But the whole experience of like mentoring junior engineers on the team, working on a problem together, helping them grow in their own sort of like career, as well as like to contribute to that towards the hackathon, I thought it was really fulfilling. And I also signed up for a lot of mentorship opportunities post that, in my capacity as a manager. So I think all these signals gave me good sort of evidence that maybe I actually enjoyed this kind of a role. So putting the opportunity together and my sort of interest together, I was able to also talk to my manager saying that, hey, I'm going to try this for about 3 months. It may or may not work, but be prepared. Like, if that's the deal, then I think I'll take it up. And I think he was agreeable. And I think that created a very good sort of space for me to try this at sort of a very low risk environment. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's one question, not so much about whether we want to become a EM. It's more about as a IC in a non-tech company without an EM to protect us? Well, that's interesting, especially when it's us, right? How do you deal with upper management that might not understand the difficulty of tech work? First of all, I just want to address that, don't belittle IC. It's not lowly. You never know how much influence power you have. I always share with my team, sometimes what we propose to management is what you propose to us. Yeah. So anyone has any advice for this question? How do we deal with upper management that doesn't understand the difficulty of tech work? Yeah. And then without an EM. Because you use the word us, I assume it's still a team that is working on it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the best way to go about it is figure out what exactly the upper management wants. Possibly what is the North Star, like, have a common North Star. Everyone should be trying to aim for that. And then whenever you want to approach upper management with certain differences in opinions or how you want to go about things, or even say, it's not going to be possible to deliver project X in the next 2 sprints, but it's going to take 6 sprints, for example. Make it as data oriented as possible, because if even with a lot of data, if the upper management just does not listen, then it's quite difficult. Maybe you're not even in the right place. Usually that does not happen though. I think most people are open to having conversations. I think it's just about how we can both understand from either side's perspective. Yeah.
Okay. I think we are only halfway through the list, but I think we only left like 10, 15 minutes, right? So before I continue here, any questions from the floor? Okay, so those questions that we cannot answer, we encourage people to continue on the group chat in Telegram. But any questions from the floor?
Hello, everyone. So I want to ask more like a personal question. So do you have any active or passive lifestyle changes before or after you become an engineering manager? So I understand maybe as an introverted person, it might not be very comfortable or easy for you to communicate with multiple parties, including your own teammates and also the upper management. So I have a friend who told me to do network with people more, or you need to socialize more, and that will basically give you some preparation before you even become a manager. So I want to ask if you, from your personal perspective, do you have any kind of lifestyle changes? Yeah.
I think socializing is much like going to the gym, like the way you would go to the gym, do reps, sets, and get stronger physically. Socializing is also a muscle. The more you practice, even in your personal life, obviously don't do it with the end goal that I want to achieve, being a manager. No, you should truly enjoy it. The more you do it, the more natural it gets, the more you'll find it relatable, to be able to connect with different kinds of people. I think it also gets easier to accept different opinions because you have just interacted with so many different kinds of people in different settings. Yeah.
I think my lifestyle change is that I play my Xbox lesser after becoming lesser. But on a serious note, I think like what Rahul said, for me also being closer to an introvert, one thing I was very uncomfortable is communicating and socializing with people. But I realized that's a skill I need to learn. So for example, me signing up for this itself is it's something outside my comfort zone to come and talk as a panelist and so on. But I think repeatedly putting myself in these kind of situations, after a while, becomes like a game with yourself where you challenge yourself and so instead of my Xbox, I play with myself this way. So that's one of the changes I did. Another changes some of the other changes is to be more active on an organizational level, to understand what the organization needs and spending more close time with my sort of leads. So a little bit of managing upwards, but I tried to spend more conscious effort into understanding the organization leads, because most of managers tend to get very siloed into their product and just focusing on their own team. But as a manager, you have equal responsibility to your team as well as the org. Yeah. So I tried to just consciously focus on both sides. Yeah.
For me, bunch of things changed, to be honest, and a lot of things just mixed from personal and professional life. As an example, when I was in IC, I used to speak in a meeting or in a discussion only when I had something to speak. But as a manager, I had a different responsibility, not just speaking when I had something to speak, but also make sure everybody else feels included, everybody else is able to express their thoughts and opinion, because I was on the other side of that table. And that became a habit slowly, because once I started engaging other folks, everybody in the room, everybody in the team, making sure that every person who's sitting and having a conversation is leaving feeling the sense of being heard and having expressed what they wanted to express, that automatically moved into my personal life, which was a bonus. Second is my commute in my last company was quite hectic. It was almost 3.5 hours every single day in total. So that I automatically used that to either watch something, learn something, and it just continued. So that gave me an opportunity to continuously just learn anything new, and it doesn't have to be tech related. There's like a multitude of things that I realized that I'm interested in through that journey. And also another thing, like Harish mentioned, something that drastically changed is the big picture thinking, because as a manager, you're responsible for the org as well. And what happens is, once you start thinking as not just what my work is or what my team's work is, but how is it actually fitting in the larger picture? How is it, why are we doing what we're doing at all? At the end of the day, questioning those things automatically again moved into my personal life, where I started looking at things in a much higher scaled up versions. So yeah, and then small things stopped bothering me.
So, so I can share a bit as well. So after I took over the role, there's a few things you have to look out for. Like sometimes I work over the weekend, just to catch up on some of the work. But I will become very conscious about not to ping my team member unless absolutely necessary on the weekend, because they will feel very obligated to respond back to you. And I appreciate every single response, but just something you have to be very conscious about. And it's not just about weekends. So sometimes you ask certain question, maybe it's just you may or may not realize that the effect of their questions on the member, right? It may be a casual remark, they take it extremely seriously sometimes, right? So then the other thing is, on the personal aspect, when we go for, so sometimes I go for vendor lunch or dinner, networking and stuff, right? In the past, we have our bosses there to handle the situation with the vendor. Then now you suddenly become the person to be the one having this conversation with the vendor. So those are a few things. Yeah, maybe stands out a little bit more to me. Yeah. So any other questions?
Hello. Sorry, I'm just quite curious, right? Like, how do you like, let's say if you had to manage a remote team upwards and downwards, how does it differ, like in terms of management style compared to like managing in person?
Okay. So I know Rahul managed a remote team. Who else managed a remote team? Okay. Maybe go with you.
First. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So you are managing a remote. How do you manage upwards, downwards, horizontally?
I see. Quite tricky. I mean, for me, I'm fortunate that I do get the opportunity to travel, and it's not too far. So I can actually travel quite frequently because my team is in Jakarta. Yeah, honestly, I don't know how to quite answer this. Maybe I'm not the right person yet.
I have managed both remote and in person. When I became a manager first, for 1.5 years, it was remote. The difference is the level of transparency or the level of communication you need, because a lot of things are easier to translate, or a lot of things are easier to read when you're in person. Essentially, on the floor, you're sitting with your teammates, you're sitting with your team, you know that they're working, you know that things are getting done. Or if some discussions are happening, you can passively hear or see. There is some information that is reaching you when in person. But when you're not in person and when it's a completely remote team, the level or cadences that you need to make sure that you're on board on the same page are very, very different. The frequency of communication has to be higher. The level of trust that you need to build also has to be different, in the sense that the like socialization aspects or just having conversations so that you know the other person better is a lot more critical or difficult to do when you're in a remote team, because you need to know the person, but you're between two screens and you never understand. And to build that trust, you need to spend more time. And that essentially becomes a lot crucial and critical in everything that you do on a day-to-day basis. So in remote, I would say more communication, more transparency, not just from your end, but also making it a habit and making it a process within the team, so that the team also adapts to be that frequent communication and doesn't feel overwhelmed with the amount of updates that they have to give. It's not for you, but it's for everybody else to understand where each other is. And so that the collaboration becomes a little bit more easier or a little bit smoother compared to in person. In person, you're just sitting right next to each other and say, hey, like what's going on? And people won't be offended. But in person, sometimes they don't translate the same way. The texts or Slack messages don't translate the same way. Your manager sending, hey, I need to talk to you. Do you have a sec? Is not received the same way as an in-person going to the desk and saying, hey, do you have a few minutes? So you need to be mindful of a lot of these things and set a space or create a space together. It will take some time, but create a space together where you know that there is trust within the team and everybody in the team is also okay with that level of communication that has to be done for the remote working environment. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, we'll take one more last question just now, the gentleman at the back. Yeah, after that, so that we can keep some time for networking. Yeah.
Hi, it's going to be quite a long question. So I believe the most growth comes from pain and suffering. And my question would be about, it's quite personal, it's about how you receive it. So how did you try to improve the status quo? And what kinds of resistance or challenges did you face? And how do you choose which battles you want to fight and which ones you give up? Right. So that is suffering or challenges that's created from within yourself. And my second half is from the outside. So what kinds of feedback did you receive from others that was a surprise to you? And how did you deal with it?
I suggest let's each take one part of the question. So there's one on the resistance, there's one on the feedback, and what's the third one? Okay. We can go next.
Which one should I answer?
Whichever one you feel like, then we left the one from the other one for the rest.
With respect to, so when I became a new manager, my director of engineering, who I was reporting to, gave me a framework, which is forming, storming, norming, and performing, which is when there is a change, there's always going to be resistance. So accept that first. And then there is storming, which is the resistance part. And then slowly, once you figure out how to fix it, it'll take time. Accept that it'll take time. Once you fix it, it'll come to a normalcy. And once it comes to a normalcy, everybody else in that particular platform is more accepting to the change and understands why something is needed, what's working, what's not working, and able to give feedback so that the next, which is the last stage, which is performing. That's essentially what I've applied in any change situation in my life, which is there will be resistance in the beginning and you just have to accept and believe that it will work once you put in a lot more effort. Not sure if I answered that first part of the question.
So can you repeat the second?
I think the other one was on the feedback, right?
Yeah. I think in the earlier days, again, as a manager, I think, like I said, one of the mistakes I did was to be likable, which means I was giving more wishy-washy feedback. So for example, I would say like, hey, you did really good, you could do this, and then I will end off with a compliment like, actually you did fine, like, like it's not getting across. So I remember one of the one-on-ones is my report, one of them said like, he didn't really feel like the one-on-ones are adding value. And I felt very shocked because it was quite direct feedback, and as at the receiving end, I was a new manager as well. So it was very overwhelming for me at first. But on the note of pain and suffering, which you mentioned, I think one personal philosophy I like to think about is there's this actor called Michael Caine. He said these three words: use that difficulty, right? So what he mentions is that in his life, once when he was practicing a theater play, he was supposed to do his entrance, and then there was a chair blocking it, and he was shocked because the chair wasn't supposed to be there and he couldn't enter. And he called out to his buddy saying that, hey, there's a chair, what do I do? And his buddy was like, use that difficulty. If it is a comedy, you're supposed to roll on the floor and make it a comic act. Or if it was a drama, it was an action scene, break the chair and come and make your entry, right? So that's my personal philosophy, that I try to see that as an opportunity, and I try to use that as use that difficulty. So for me, I think it was a wake-up moment. I saw that, okay, actually what my report told me is a very good signal, because without which I would have continued on a trajectory of, continuing to give him very wishy-washy feedback. And using that as a signal, I thought I made a lot of effort into making my one-on-ones very constructive, very direct, and I showed very clear changes in the coming one-on-ones, to the point where I directly asked him if it's valuable for him, and I made concrete changes on that. Yeah.
What's the third part of your question?
I think
Okay.
anything else you want to add to this?
I think that covers pretty much all.
Okay. Yeah. So that wraps up the panelist session. Thanks a lot for all your questions, and thanks all the panelists here for sharing your experience, your insights. I hope that all the sharing has helped every one of you, be it for you to decide whether you want to take up a EM role, be it, you want to figure out how to prepare yourself for an EM role, or, if you are in the EM role, how are you handling some of the situations that we have covered. We have this place until 9 o'clock, so we are open for networking, and all of us are still around here. We will just roam around, so feel free to grab any one of us if you have more questions. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and here's a link to our Telegram and our socials. Do join us in the Telegram group, and we'll probably share links to some photos as well as some notes. I think we have Abel at the back, who's our awesome note taker, helping us take down minutes of meeting. Okay, Ken.
And for all those questions that we didn't manage to answer in the pigeonhole, I strongly encourage you to post it in the group chat. So we'll go in and discuss about that. Yeah. So feel free to continue the conversation, in the networking session and also in the group chat.
And one last QR code that I'll show in a while, and that is feedback. Feedback is a gift. I love to receive gifts. Please send us some gifts. Yeah. And once again, thanks to Stella and the rest of the panelists for your awesome insights. Thank you very much. Go talk to them, get their LinkedIn, and be friends. And one last thing before we go, we do your networking. We have a supper thing. If folks here who are still hungry can join us for supper, we're going to Bras Basah Food Court. This one doesn't need physical cash, so. Yeah, the previous place we go to requires us to give hard cold cash. So yeah, I'd rather not go there. Yeah. This one you wash and I see how lah. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll probably go there after about at the end of it, 9 o'clock. Yeah, cool. Thank you. And go mingle.